Right, let's just get straight into it, because what happened on transfer deadline day deserves more than just a passing glance. It needs to be properly unpacked. Celtic fans woke up on the 2nd of September with the slightest flicker of hope that the club might finally pull something out of the bag. A last-minute signing, a quality addition, something, anything, to show we meant business this season. But what we got instead was a masterclass in how not to run a transfer window. It was a day that started badly and, somehow, found a way to get worse with every passing hour. First, the main target of recent weeks, Kasper Dolberg, slipped through our fingers. Ajax came in with a €10 million offer. He wanted to go. And just like that, the dream was over before it even had a chance to begin. That moment summed up the whole transfer approach this summer. Reactive, slow, and utterly lacking in direction. Celtic were left scrambling, chasing names with panic in their eyes. Kamara from Strasbourg was mentioned, a player who scored once in over 700 minutes last season. Not exactly the prolific forward we've been screaming for. That never materialized. Then came the news about David Fofana from Chelsea. We were supposedly interested in taking him on loan, but he chose to go to Charlton Athletic. That deal didn't even happen in the end, but the fact that he preferred Charlton over Celtic says a lot. And then, as if to twist the knife, the Adam Ida situation finally ended, with him officially moving to Swansea on a 5-year deal. No replacement in the door, nothing lined up. Just a key player walking out without a plan B in place. Brendan Rodgers had said not even 3 days before that Ida would not leave unless a replacement was secured. And yet, here we are. That led to yet another recycled rumor, Kelechi Iheanacho. Familiar name, familiar pattern. A player Rodgers knows from Leicester, a player we were linked to in the last window when it all fell apart at the last minute. He's been at Sevilla, spent some time on loan at Middlesbrough, didn't exactly light things up, and now he's a free agent after Sevilla terminated his contract. Talks are said to be ongoing, but even if a deal gets done, it reeks of desperation. Every agent and club out there knows Celtic are in full panic mode. We are the team at the table with our cards facing the wrong way, and everyone else is playing us. It's not even that Iheanacho would be a bad signing. It's the process. It's the feeling that we've arrived here not through planning, not through vision, but through pure necessity. We've gone from a squad with potential to a group that looks alarmingly threadbare, especially up top. And even if Iheanacho arrives, we're now up against a clock for registering him for the Europa League squad. That deadline is 11 o'clock tonight, and missing that would just be the cherry on top of this absolute shambles. The only actual signing Celtic did make on deadline day was Sebastian Tenekti from Hammarby in Sweden. £5.2 million for a left winger who, by all accounts, has a bit of flair about him. Rodgers said he can play on both sides, but his natural position is off the left. And let's be clear, this is not on Tenekti. The frustration and anger from the fans isn't aimed at him. It's just a shame for the lad that his arrival was met with sighs and shrugs rather than celebration. Not because of who he is, but because of the state of the squad and the failures leading up to it. Hopefully, he can be a bright spot, but he's walking into a team and a fan base that are running on fumes. There were other movements, or lack thereof. Young, for example, was reportedly down in Birmingham, waiting for the final go-ahead on a move, but that fell through. Maybe Celtic pulled the plug. Maybe Birmingham couldn't sort the paperwork in time. Either way, he's staying, whether he wanted to or not. Stephen Welsh was sent out on loan to Motherwell, which makes sense in isolation, but again, it leaves us lighter in a position that's not exactly stacked with depth. And then you look at the overall picture and ask, what exactly is the plan here? What was the ambition going into this window? Because it feels like the squad is even weaker now than it was 3 months ago, and that should have been impossible. Somehow we've managed it. Fair play, I suppose. The depth, or lack of it, is staggering. In goal, we've got Schmeichel, Sinisalo, and Dan. Right-back options are Johnston, Ralston, and Donovan, who was nearly sent out to Dundee before we realized we actually needed him. Centre-backs? Carter Vickers is the only one who looks nailed on. The rest are Scales, Murray, Trusty, Simpson, and Puzzy, names that don't exactly inspire confidence. At left-back, there's Tierney, Sirachi, and Enamura. The latter's been so forgotten about. He might as well be a ghost. Midfield looked like our strongest area a couple of months ago, but now? McGregor, Negrin, Hatate, Engels, Macau, and Bernardo. 6 players for a midfield that needs to dominate games across multiple competitions. Out wide, it's even more concerning. Right wing? Just Forrest and Young. Left wing? We've got Maeda, Balikwisha, Tooney, and Hoda, although Hoda's out and Maeda is inconsistent. And up front, the grand total of Yamada, Kinney, and Osman. That's it. 3 strikers to get us through domestic fixtures, Europe, and cup competitions. And as if that wasn't bad enough, 2 of our new wingers, Tenekti and Balikwisha, are set to miss a massive chunk of the season for the African Cup of Nations. Tenekti's a regular for Tunisia. Balikwisha just declared for DR Congo. If Iheanacho comes in, he's another who could be gone for the tournament. And that's happening in late December through January, a key period in the season, including a derby match. So what exactly are our attacking options going to be at that point? Who's going to lead the line? Are we banking on Yang, who nearly left, to carry us through? Is Maeda going to be thrown through the middle for 6 weeks? It's a terrifying prospect, and we haven't even hit the winter yet. All this chaos, and we haven't even heard a peep from the board. Brendan Rodgers is going to be the next person we hear from, probably a week before the Kilmarnock match, and you already know what he's going to say. The same sound bites about unity, doing the best with what we've got, and showing belief. But the support has reached breaking point. We're fed up. This is not just about one bad window. It's about the constant cycle of failure to build from a position of strength. This time last year, there was excitement, optimism. We'd had a strong European showing, felt like progress was being made, and all we needed was a little bit of smart investment to push forward. Kieran Tierney was coming back. We had cash from Champions League seasons. We had momentum. And somehow, we've thrown all of that away. And still, we'll be told to keep the faith. That Rodgers can turn it around. And maybe he can. He's done it before, steadying the ship in tough times. But back then, he had buy-in from the squad. He had players who believed. This time, you look at the group and wonder how many of them are still truly invested. How many are just counting down the days until they can move on? And when that's the case, you need real quality signings to inject life into the team. We haven't done that. Rodgers isn't walking. Not yet anyway. He said he's staying for the season. Maybe that's true. Maybe he gives it one last go. But what a missed opportunity this summer has been. A window that should have been about consolidation and progress has instead become a monument to hesitation, indecision, and a shocking lack of ambition. And still, somehow, we've got fans trying to put a positive spin on it. We're top of the league. We've got the best manager in the country. We've got the resources. All technically true, but none of it means anything if we keep making the same mistakes over and over. Rangers have closed the gap. Hearts are on the rise. We're not untouchable, not anymore. What we needed was to build from strength, to show intent, to match the ambitions of the fans who pour money, time, and energy into this club week after week. Instead, we got nothing. And for a club like Celtic, with its history and its global reach, that is simply not good enough. The problem right now isn't just the lack of signings. It's the message that lack of action sends. When you have 3 consecutive seasons of Champions League money banked, one of the highest wage bills in the country, and a support that's completely behind you, yet you come out of a summer window actually weaker than when you went in, what exactly are you telling us? That mediocrity is acceptable? That scraping by in the league and turning up for the bare minimum in Europe is enough? This isn't the Celtic of old. This isn't a club behaving like a leader. This is a club terrified of taking a risk, of stepping out of its comfort zone and trying to make something special happen. The irony is, we're sitting on one of the strongest financial positions we've had in decades, and yet our transfer strategy is being run like we're balancing pennies. How does that make sense? What's the point of building all that wealth if you're too scared to use it when it matters? And you can feel it in the stands, you can hear it in the pubs, and you can sense it in every conversation about the club right now. The belief is starting to fade. Not just in the board, but in the very direction of the club. Fans have been patient, more than patient. We've stuck through rebuilds, backed managers, supported youth projects, and accepted that not every signing will hit the ground running. But when the same issues keep rearing their head, lack of ambition, last-minute panic buys, selling key players without real replacements, it becomes impossible to defend the people running the show. You look at the squad now, and you genuinely wonder what the plan is. There are glaring holes across the pitch. No true number 9 who can lead the line with quality and consistency. midfielders that aren't commanding games like they used to, a defense with gaps and question marks hanging over multiple names. Even our best players from last season either look like shadows of themselves or are injured, unavailable, or possibly heading out the door. And this isn't just about personnel. It's about identity. What kind of football are we trying to play? Who are we building around? What's the tactical vision that's guiding our recruitment? Because right now, it looks like we're signing players without a clue how they're going to fit. You can't just throw 10 names into a squad and hope it clicks. That's not management. That's not strategy. That's guesswork. The most frustrating part of all of this is that the fans saw it coming. Before the window even opened, supporters were calling for reinforcements in key areas, a proper striker, another center half, cover for key wingers, a midfield enforcer. What did we get? A winger who might be good but is heading to the African Cup of Nations, a few younger players with promise but no guarantees, and then a big nothing. Absolute silence in areas where we desperately needed action. Then there's the communication, or more accurately, the lack of it. No statements, no clarity, no explanation from the people responsible. When the club's falling short, when the window closes in failure, when supporters are left angry and confused, what we get is a wall of silence. The fans are left to speculate, argue among themselves, and wait for Brendan Rodgers to be wheeled out to face the press, forced to defend a transfer strategy he likely didn't even control. It's cowardly. If you're running the club, you front up. You explain the decisions, you justify the strategy, and you take accountability when it fails. That's leadership. That's what's missing. Brendan Rodgers will try, no doubt. He'll go to the media, keep things calm, urge unity, say he believes in the group. And maybe he does. But you can see it on his face already, the frustration, the weariness. This isn't the project he signed up for. When he came back, he did so under the impression that things would be different, that the club had changed, that it had learned from past mistakes. But it hasn't. It's the same old Celtic board, stuck in the same old habits, always one step behind where they need to be. You can't keep expecting supporters to accept mediocrity. Not when they're filling the stadium, buying the shirts, traveling the length of the country, pouring everything into this club. The minimum they deserve is a team that matches their ambition. And right now, that is not what we're seeing on the pitch. That's not what we're seeing in the transfer strategy. And it's definitely not what we're seeing in Europe. Europe, that's another thing. For years, we've been saying that Celtic need to do better on the European stage. And last season, we saw some signs of that. Games against top sides where we looked like we belonged, where we pushed them all the way, where there was belief and intent in how we played. And we thought, right, this is the foundation. This is where we push on. Get 2 or 3 top additions in, and we can compete at a higher level. Instead, we've gone backwards. The team looks slower, less confident, more disjointed. We've lost key players and failed to replace them. And when you look at the group stage we're facing in the Europa League, it's hard to feel anything but dread. Good teams, tough fixtures, and a Celtic side that's barely functioning in attack and leaking goals at the back. That's not a recipe for European progress. That's a recipe for disappointment. Again, and here's the thing. The league won't save us if this continues. It's all good and well being 6 points clear now, but momentum swings fast in Scottish football. Rangers are showing signs of life. They spent £8 million on deadline day alone, nearly as much as we spent all window. They're making moves. We're standing still. And Hearts have started strong too. Complacency is a dangerous thing, and Celtic are flirting with it far too comfortably. There's this idea that because we've been dominant for so long, we'll always find a way. That the squad, even as it is, should be enough to win the league. Maybe. But what if it's not? What if this is the season where the cracks finally become too wide to paper over? What if those narrow wins turn into dropped points, and the belief inside the dressing room fades like it's starting to in the stands? Then what? It's not about being negative for the sake of it. It's about calling out the reality. And the reality is that we've just had one of the worst transfer windows in recent memory. Not because we didn't spend a fortune, but because we didn't spend smart. We didn't address the areas that needed fixing. We didn't give Brendan Rodgers the tools he needs to do the job. And we didn't match the ambition of the people who care most about this club, the supporters. We're heading into a crucial run of fixtures with a team that's undercooked, under-resourced, and, frankly, underwhelming. Injuries will hit. Suspensions will happen. Form will dip. That's football. The point of a transfer window is to prepare for that. Build depth, build competition, build a squad that can weather the storms of a long season. What we've done is leave ourselves vulnerable. Barely enough strikers. No consistent right winger. A midfield with question marks. A backline with no clear hierarchy. It's reckless. And worse, it's predictable. Because we've seen it before. We've seen the same mistakes play out under different managers, in different eras. The names change, but the behavior doesn't. And unless something drastic changes behind the scenes, a real shift in approach, in ambition, in how we value the trust of the supporters, we'll see it again. This isn't just about one bad day. It's not just about losing out on a player or two. It's about a culture of doing the bare minimum, of prioritizing balance sheets over trophies, of assuming the fans will keep coming back no matter what. But that loyalty has its limits. And for many, this deadline day might just be the moment those limits were reached. Rodgers will do his best, as he always does. And he might still win the league, because he's a good manager working in a league where the margins aren't huge. But the question is bigger than just this season. It's about where we're heading as a club. Are we trying to grow? To compete on a bigger stage? Or are we content to coast domestically while offering up token gestures in Europe? Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. The rumor mill in Scotland has rarely spun with such force as it has this week, with whispers echoing from Glasgow pubs to the farthest reaches of Europe that Celtic have shattered every precedent by completing what is being described, with breathless enthusiasm, as the most extraordinary signing in their long and storied history. Word has it that Che Adams, the powerful striker with pace to burn and an eye for goal sharpened in the heat of the Premier League, has chosen to don the famous green and white hoops, a decision that would mark a seismic shift not only for the Scottish champions, but also for the perception of Scottish football across the continent. For supporters who have spent decades dreaming of a figure capable of bringing European nights at Parkhead back to their highest peaks, this development feels almost like folklore bleeding into reality, a story of ambition rarely glimpsed in the modern era. People speak of queues at Celtic Park for merchandise that has not yet been printed, of chants already rehearsed in anticipation of his first home goal, and of rival supporters caught somewhere between disbelief and envy as the weight of this historic coup becomes impossible to dismiss. The significance of Celtic pulling off such a deal resonates far beyond the immediate excitement of one player's arrival. For years, critics have insisted that Scottish football lacked the financial firepower or international allure to attract a talent of Adams' caliber in the prime of his career, and yet this supposed limitation seems to have been obliterated overnight. Insiders murmur that months of delicate negotiations, quiet assurances, and bold promises converged into this astonishing breakthrough, leaving other clubs stunned at how a side north of Hadrian's Wall could outmaneuver wealthier rivals from England, Germany, and even Spain. What makes the whispers louder still is the suggestion that Adams himself was swayed not by money alone, but by the prospect of becoming the central figure in a grand Celtic resurgence, spearheading campaigns in Europe where the faithful still recall nights when giants of the game were toppled beneath the floodlights of paradise. In every cafe, office, and supporters club, the talk is of transformation, of a message sent to the wider football world that Celtic intend not merely to participate on the continental stage, but to impose themselves with renewed pride and audacity. As these murmurs grow, so too does the speculation about what Adams' arrival might mean for Celtic's domestic dominance and their eternal rivalry with Rangers. The chatter suggests that Adams could be the weapon to tilt the balance decisively in favor of the Hoops, adding a dimension of clinical finishing and relentless pressing that might overwhelm even the sternest Premiership defenses. Fans speak of tactical blueprints being redrawn, of younger players inspired by the presence of such a seasoned international, and of managers across the league nervously recalibrating their plans to cope with this unexpected reality. One rumor insists that scouts from rival clubs have already been dispatched to gather intelligence on how Celtic will utilize their new talisman, fearful that the gap at the summit may widen beyond their reach. Conversations are peppered with comparisons to legends of the past, yet there is an underlying sense that Adams could carve a legacy uniquely his own, tethered not to nostalgia, but to the creation of something genuinely new. Every whisper, every pint spilled in animated debate, adds to the feeling that Scotland's footballing landscape has just shifted beneath our feet. Beyond the immediate rivalries, the wider European football community has not been able to ignore the noise rising from Glasgow. Reports drift through corridors of power at UEFA suggesting that Celtic's move is being studied as a template for how clubs outside the traditional financial elite might rewrite their destiny by combining vision, daring, and sheer determination. There is talk that Adams' unveiling could attract global attention, bringing broadcasters, sponsors, and neutral fans eager to witness what might unfold when a player of his profile throws his lot in with a side desperate to recapture former European glories. In Spain, Italy, and France, journalists are said to be scrambling for details, trying to confirm how the deal was struck and whether it signals a broader trend of ambitious clubs in so-called smaller leagues refusing to accept their assigned places in football's hierarchy. The whispers weave a picture of a club stepping into a brighter, more defiant future, carrying with them not just their loyal supporters, but the hopes of a nation hungry to prove its football belongs among the grand narratives of the continent. Yet for all the speculation and rumor, what lingers most strongly is the atmosphere of anticipation, the sense that something extraordinary is about to unfold in the east end of Glasgow. Even those who dismiss the reports as exaggerated gossip cannot help but be swept up in the electricity of the moment, acknowledging that the mere possibility of Adams joining Celtic has injected a jolt of excitement into the sporting culture of the country. Supporters whisper of packed stadiums reverberating with roars that shake the very foundations, of children inspired to pull on boots and dream of following in the footsteps of a striker whose arrival promises to redefine what is possible. At its heart, this story is about belief. Belief that history is not fixed but written anew with daring strokes. Belief that Celtic can once again command respect across Europe, and belief that one signing, however unlikely it may seem, can ignite a fire that burns brighter than ever before. The murmurs continue, the chatter refuses to fade, and Scotland waits with bated breath to see whether this remarkable rumor will indeed crystallize into the most historic signing Celtic have ever known. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.